What's up, everybody? I hope you're doing well. Welcome to the extended cut, minimally edited podcast version of this week's episode. Today, I'm going to share all about why I've chosen to be a solopreneur. As an entrepreneur in this very strange and magical land of online businesses, I like to at least sometimes consume some content that offers advice and feedback for how to be a successful entrepreneur. And I've noticed almost universally, there's a piece of advice that you not do this solo. The idea is that if you want to grow and scale your business, you need to work on your business instead of in your business. You need to delegate things out, hire employees in order to truly be an entrepreneur and succeed, or else, you're not going to make it. And it seems from my perspective, at least, that not only are my businesses thriving, but I'm also really happy and satisfied in my career. And I've also been doing this online business thing solo for 5.5 years now. So it feels relatively sustainable as well. So even though I think most people probably wouldn't thrive as a solopreneur or even an entrepreneur for that matter, I imagine there must be at least some people who are similar enough to me that they would thrive as a solopreneur. So I thought I would share my thoughts on this out into the world because, if you're someone who maybe would thrive as a solopreneur, it might be helpful for you to hear this. If you're someone who was thinking about being a solopreneur, but maybe that's not quite where you would most thrive, it might be helpful for you to hear this also. And just in general, I get quite a few questions from folks about how to add additional revenue streams, passive income, scalable income, side business, side hustle, whatever you want to call it. And so for folks in that category, I thought this might be helpful as well. Now, I haven't recorded the episode just yet. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm about to do it, but I have a feeling in my extended cut version of this week's episode, I'm going to have, just some embellished additional feelings that I'm going to share. And if I come across as a little bit defensive, I think I am a little defensive. I'm a little offensive. That was a little Office episode reference. Okay, if you don't know that reference, don't worry about it. It's not important. But I might be a little defensive as I share in this episode because, there's just so many people saying how bad of an idea it is to be a solopreneur, and I just so love it, and I would hate for someone else who maybe would be a good fit to run a business solo to see all that advice out there and just not even bother. That would make me so sad. Like, what if that was like your future destiny, dream come true situation, and you didn't even give it a chance because there weren't any voices out there supporting that as a potential option. Now, before I dive into my, likely defensive posture around, why I think it's so great to be a solopreneur, I do want to preface and say that I think for the average person and even for the average entrepreneur, doing it solo likely isn't the best fit. So in this episode, I'm going to share why I think it's such a great fit for me, and you might glean some ideas about who it could potentially be a good fit for, but just hear me when I'm prefacing and saying this probably isn't the best fit for everyone. I think that'll become apparent as we get into it. So if you do a simple Google search of whether it's a good idea to be a solopreneur or not, you're going to get all kinds of headlines saying that it's a bad idea. And so I thought it might be an interesting structure for this week's episode to read one of these articles that's saying it's not a good idea to do your business solo and just kind of react to each of their bullet points that they name for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur. And I'll share some of the reasons why I disagree or I don't think that it applies to me in the way that they share. So one of the titles that caught my eye in the Google search is called Why You Should Not Be a Solopreneur. That felt very direct. It's not even like pros and cons or why we don't recommend it. It's like, you should not do this. So I figured this might be a good article to just run through their primary bullet points for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur and just respond to each of them. Now, before I dive into the reasons why they say you should not be a solopreneur, I will just directly quote how they define what a solopreneur is. They say, quote, "In the simplest of terms, solopreneurs are entrepreneurs who run their business alone or single-handedly." Yep, that's me. These are independent professionals who are engaged in building a personal brand by performing each of the business tasks themselves. They are themselves responsible for achieving personal and financial success from scratch and do not have any employees or support staff working for them. The term solopreneur is a broad term that is used to refer to different professionals, including freelancers, consultants, small business owners, and and on-call workers. Now, I am going to run through relatively quickly some of the characteristics that they list of a solopreneur. They say a solopreneur has passion and optimism. You have to have an unflinching passion for your idea or business plan. Absolutely, that makes sense to me. And then they go on to say that a solopreneur has courage and confidence because, quote, if you wish to go solo, then you must not only take risks, but also trust in your own abilities. Yes. And then I found it interesting that they said you must be both an extrovert and an introvert, which is kind of confusing, but actually when I reflect on myself, that is a fit. On the Myers-Briggs, I always land like pretty close to middle. Sometimes I'm an E and sometimes I'm an I. And the idea is the extrovert part of you has to do stuff like what I'm doing right now, making this video, putting yourself out there. And the introvert part of you is spending a lot of time working behind the scenes alone on your business, which I absolutely spend a lot of my week doing. They also say a solopreneur has to be creative with getting resources. You wear so many different hats that you probably aren't skilled in all of them. So you have to get creative in learning new skills or reaching out to get support with areas that you aren't already familiar with. Absolutely true. They say you also have to have versatility and you also have to be financially and tech savvy, which thanks to my husband for being incredibly financially savvy, like above and beyond. You couldn't even imagine how financially savvy he is. So I glean from his smarts in that arena. And though I wouldn't call myself tech savvy, I'm definitely like tech curious, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. I'm not tech savvy, not inherently, but I'm always curious about how technology works. So I really struggle with it, but I am so curious that I'll keep working at some technological issue until I feel like I figured it out good enough to get the thing rolling, whatever it is I'm working on, whether it's editing a video, figuring out how to put up a podcast, figuring out how to build a course online, like all this stuff I'm not tech savvy on, but I just I'm so curious about it. I'll just keep working until I get it. And next they say you need negotiation skills and salesmanship. I mean, I don't know if I'm particularly skilled in that arena or not. I've never really reflected on that. Perhaps, I don't know. But the idea is you have to sell a product or something to earn money. So you have to have good sales skills there. Makes sense. And lastly, that you need to be creative. And I like to think of myself as creative. You kind of constantly have to be generating new ideas, innovating something by definition as an entrepreneur. So there you go. Okay, so let's get into the meat and potatoes of what I want to talk about in this episode. They have a header on their site that says, why you should not go the solopreneur way. Let's hear what they have to say. Okay, the number one reason that they give is you are your biggest roadblock. Quote, since you are the only person involved in the business and have to handle each of the tasks yourself, if you do not do some work, then it won't be done at all. And then they go on to talk about how you have to be pretty self-motivated to get your work done. And I would say for most people, this is the biggest roadblock to entrepreneurship in general. Not just being a solopreneur, it doesn't matter how many employees you have to be incredibly self-motivated to keep your business going. So I would agree that this one's true in general, but I think it does apply to all entrepreneurs and not just solopreneurs. And for me personally, I am incredibly self-motivated. My shadow side lives on the other end of it, where if I have a passion that I am pursuing, I am so capable of overworking myself into the ground to pursue that passion. And so for me, my growth edge is learning how to rein in my motivation so I don't neglect the other things that I also value, like getting good sleep, taking care of my body, being there as a mom, supporting my spouse. Like, I have a lot of other values, and if I get too sucked into a passion, I could just keep on working. And we don't want that. Okay, and the next reason they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is separation of personal and business finances is difficult. And though I could imagine this might be true for the average person, as I read this particular bullet point, I was kind of surprised by it because this particular item has just not even been on my radar at all. Anytime I've started a new business, which I've only done this twice now with my therapy practice and private practice skills, but as soon as I have money go out or come in, immediately I open a new bank account just for that business, and I do not do any overlaps. Like, that bank account is its own dedicated entity. I do not perceive that as my personal finances. I perceive that as my business's finances, and that business will hold back taxes that I pay out quarterly. That business will offer me a paycheck, and generally I make sure that that business has enough savings so that just in case there's a slow month or anything like that, I have plenty of resources in case of emergency. Just like I would with my personal finances, try to save up, 3 months, ideally 6 months or more of extra money just in case, all of my income goes away. That's all sitting in my business account too, just in case my business totally shuts down for many months. I could just keep my expenses covered until I pick up again. So personally, this has not been an issue at all for me. I mean, they even say in their elaboration, quote, "But mixing of finances is inevitable as solopreneur and often leads to legal hassles." In my mind, this isn't inevitable at all. You just keep really good boundaries, keep your finances separate between your business and your personal finances, and you're good. And the third reason they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is that it can be exhausting. The idea is that you're wearing a gazillion hats, all the hats that are relevant to your business, and you're going to get exhausted because you're constantly having to switch from one hat to the other, cover so many different things, and kind of multitask, and that's going to be incredibly exhausting. Now, I, on the one hand, see how that's very much possible, and for me, the workaround that I've chosen, whether it's the best workaround or not, is that I keep my focus on a very limited range of tasks to say, what are the things that matter the most to keep this business running and thriving and aligned with my values, and what things do I not have to do? And since building content for my YouTube channel is the primary space that I kind of keep this business running, then if all I do on any given week is put together a YouTube video and release it, however good or bad that video might have turned out that week, then I can check the box and say I did the bare minimum. And then of course I do have other priorities that I do my very best to keep on top of. I really try my best to respond to questions that students leave in my online courses. But if I'm honest, other than that, a lot of things go by the wayside and I just let that be. So many people email me. I try to make it very clear on the contact me page of my website that I'm just largely unavailable because it is just me. Most of my emails fall into two categories: people trying to sponsor my content, or people asking me for very detailed, specific, individualized advice for free. So for me, the growth edge is learning to accept that I can't respond to all of those emails as much as I want to give that free advice to people who are emailing me. I can't. Even if all I did was respond and say hey, I'm sorry, I'm not available, that would take up so much of my brain space and energy every single week. I could hire a virtual assistant just to do that, but instead I've opted to have this blanket statement on my contact me page saying I do not respond to these emails. And if you're one of the people who's emailed me, just know it's not personal. I cannot respond to all of I can't respond to those. So I have to just choose not to, basically. And the emails from sponsors might sound really nice, and I do appreciate that I've achieved, I guess, an audience size large enough that I just get a really steady flow of inquiries. But there's a lot of really spammy sponsors out there who also have really spammy email practices. So I'll get 3 emails in a day from the same sponsor inquiring. So I just mute all of those or delete them. And a lot of the sponsors are also just products that have absolutely nothing to do with my brand or my business. People trying to get me to sell products for dogs or things. I'm what does that have to do with private practice? I don't understand. So there's that. And I forgot a third category of emails that I get constantly are from people asking to partner in some way. Usually people asking how much I would charge for them to post a guest post on my website, or it might be somebody asking if, I could pay them to edit my videos or whatever, but they seem like they're coming from these big kind of robo email things. I don't know how it works, but they kind of all look exactly the same. And I just get dozens of those emails every day. So I just do my best to try to choose not to even look at them. And I notice friends in my circles get sucked into like the latest kind of fads or trends. And if that's aligned with what you want to do, by all means, go for it. But I know for me, like if I felt like I had to get on TikTok or I should be posting to Instagram more, then I would totally be exhausted. It's like, nope, this is what's important to me right now. I'm just going to focus on this. And there's a bunch of stuff going on that I am completely out of touch with, and I just have to be okay with that. The next reason they give for why you should not be a solopreneur is lack of collaboration. You don't have any employees, you don't have any team members, people to bounce ideas off of, and so it's easy to kind of get in a rut. And I would say to that, for me, up until when I started working for myself, I struggled so much working on teams. Like, that's not my strength. And we could say, Marie, that's something you might like to work on, perhaps. But for me, it's a total gift that I can work for myself. I don't get hung up on the dynamics that I find myself so often getting stuck on when I work with teams of people. Like, I kind of feel a little guilty almost saying that, like I should be really great at working on teams, but I'm not. So for me, it's actually quite a bit easier that I don't have to collaborate with other people. And if you're wondering why I don't do well working on teams, usually I end up being the person who feels resentful that I feel like I'm doing most of the work, or that other people are going much slower than the speed that I would like to work at. So then my whole experience working on a team gets colored by that dynamic, or watching other people on the team being okay with subpar, unethical practices, me trying to file complaints about that, and then I get pegged as the person who complains when I just want to work on something that I think is worthwhile. So there you got a little window into like Marie's like sassy side, I guess. And the next reason that they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is that things can get extremely lonely. I mean, that sounds familiar. A lot of people talk about that for therapists in general, and then now being a solopreneur. And personally, I am so not lonely. I so enjoy having that time by myself, like just spending so much of my week sitting at the computer, clicking to edit a video is just very soothing. And I think a lot of that for me is related to being a highly sensitive person. I thrive on having time by myself to do tasks that are relatively mindless. Now, with that said, I absolutely need social support in order to thrive, and I do not do well if I feel like I cannot access social support. But I have a very robust support system. They're just not people that I know through my business, private practice skills. It's my friends from my communities, people that I've known for years and years, people that I meet along the way, maybe loosely because of, being a business person, but generally the people that I keep investing in are people that I am not talking about worky type things with. I don't want to talk about work things when I'm not at work. So we're talking about like big ethical dilemmas in the world and politics and what's going on in your family life or your personal life. Those are the things that I really thrive off of. So my social supports have almost nothing to do with my business except for my consultation peers who I do very much consult about, our therapy work together, and I really appreciate that support as well. The next reason they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is that experiencing failure can be overwhelming as a solopreneur. And I definitely agree with that bullet point. Like, when you fail, you are the sole reason for why it's happened. I mean, there's other variables perhaps, but like, it's not like you can go blame your boss or like your team member or your employee. Like, you did this. So if something doesn't work, it's your own doing, your own creation. And so that can be incredibly painful. And I agree. I do not like the way it feels when something that I do just flops. But usually for me, the thing that can feel like a failure is if I created something that feels like it doesn't quite jive with my values or my purpose and why I'm trying to create that item. If, I make a video and not very many people watch it, or, I try to sell something, it doesn't have many sales, yeah, whatever. It's just, that one doesn't bother me as much. I guess maybe because my identity isn't in making those sales, and also probably because I make enough of a paycheck from all the other things that I'm doing, that if one item flops, it's not going to make or break, my income. So that's a note on diversifying your income, which is not what this video is about, but that makes it a lot easier for me to stomach when something flops on my business. And the next reason they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is lack of resources. And reading through this, I think they're referring primarily to financial resources, which I could absolutely see being an issue. Though again, whether you're a solopreneur or an entrepreneur with a bunch of employees, like that could still happen regardless. If anything, I get scared thinking of hiring on employees because it's like, what if I can't pay them anymore if something happens? Versus if it's just me, it's like, well, I'll figure it out. But what I'll say to this point and why this doesn't feel like a personal issue I've experienced is when I started Private Practice Skills, I assumed that I wouldn't make any income for quite a long time, at least a year. And so I made a choice to do all my private practice skills on the side of my full-time job. So I was generating my regular income that I was already generating, and then I started a new business on the side of that. I was working weekends, I was working at night, I was working on my lunch break on private practice skills, knowing that I wouldn't make a paycheck, but it aligned with my values and my passions enough that I was really motivated to keep working on it, knowing I wouldn't generate any income. And I didn't buy anything for private practice skills until I made money that I could use to buy those things. And then back to something I mentioned before, I keep my business finances separate from my personal finances, and I always have quite a bit of cushion saved in my business accounts so that in case there's a slow month or something like that, I have plenty of cushion. I've never had an issue in the 5.5 years of private practice skills and in my almost 10 years of running my therapy practice where my business account did not have the money sitting in it that was needed to not only cover my business expenses, but also pay my bills. So again, as a solopreneur, and at least so far, I have not come across this issue. Okay, the next reason they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is lack of validation. They say, quote, "The reason why teams tend to produce better results than individuals is because each member can validate or improve the ideas of the others. Every individual craves validation and appreciation, which is something that's not possible for solopreneurs." Though quickly I'll say to that, it's definitely possible to get feedback as a solopreneur. I mean, I'm in a mastermind of fellow female psychologist entrepreneurs, and it's pretty common that we'll bounce ideas off of each other in that group and get the validation or, new ideas that we might need. So you don't have to have employees or team members to validate your ideas. And I'll say, I agree, like having a team definitely produces better ideas than not having a team. And for me, going back to the point that I made earlier, I often feel like my ideas get shot down when I'm on a team. I will say, when I just said that out loud, I felt this pang of bitterness against these prior workplace situations where I would feel like I had such a good idea and then somebody who had more power or who was louder or more male would have their idea win out, and then still in the end looking back and thinking I think I had a better idea. So, you do need a bit of self-inflation and overconfidence to be a solopreneur. Now, a few years back, I did a video about whether therapists are narcissists, and I did the narcissist test, and I forget what the score was now, but it said I was definitely narcissistic. So it's in there. I have room to grow, and hopefully I can embrace that. But I will say, for me, when I'm on a team, I generally feel like my ideas are invalidated because usually what I want to do is not the stuff that most people advise or that's generally recommended. And that's true about business and marketing and branding as well. I just do things differently than the status quo for the most part. And so I generally feel invalidated when I ask for feedback. So I just kind of have gone on my own and done it my own way. And for me, it's ended up making me feel really validated because now I just get to do the thing that I always wanted to do rather than feeling perpetually held back by red tape, invalidation, people saying that my idea is not going to work, not a good idea. So whether it's actually a good idea or not, it's more enjoyable for me, at least this way, as a solopreneur. And the last reason that they give why you shouldn't be a solopreneur is that it's not for everyone. I mean, I don't know if I love that as a bullet point in general of why you shouldn't do something. We might say you shouldn't pursue being an Olympian because it's not for everyone. And it's well, yeah, but it's for someone. And so, maybe if you were curious, you can explore enough to see if that someone is you or not. So yes, it's not for everyone. And let's see what they say about why. It says, quote, only those with a gamut of skills, unique characteristics, and exceptional multitasking abilities can achieve success in this path of work. Well, yeah, maybe they kind of like discounted what they said a little bit. Like maybe they're saying at least some people might be able to thrive as a solopreneur when your article title is like why you shouldn't. Anyway, and they go on to name some characteristics of who solopreneurship is not for, and I'll just kind of read them off quickly because I don't disagree with these. It's not ideal for those who are not good at networking. It's not ideal for those who cannot multitask. Okay, I said I was just going to run through them quickly, and actually I disagree with that one. I very rarely multitask as a solopreneur because I'm the one, no one's trying to contact me except for all the emails that I don't read. I don't have like team members pinging me all the time, and I hear my clients in their kind of corporate type jobs getting pinged constantly from coworkers, bosses, etc., and you never get to actually work on the thing that you want to work on. So for me, working by myself has way less multitasking. I get what they're saying because you have to wear so many hats, but I just block the time for what hat I'm wearing that day. So you can do it without multitasking, and you might actually be able to access solo tasking much more easily than a typical job where you're working at a corporation or something like that. It's not ideal for those who lack financial knowledge, and I would say to that, you can always hire help with financial knowledge, and if you don't have financial knowledge, I highly recommend it. And I also say it's not ideal for those who are used to working as a team. To that, I'll say I do have solopreneur friends who prefer to work as a team, who find ways to create really strong networks that maybe you're in a co-working space together, a networking context where you are still surrounded by people who start to feel a bit like a team, even though they're all working on their own kind of solopreneur ventures. And it says not ideal for those who are not tech savvy, which again, you can always consult and get help on tech stuff. So I don't know how much I agree with these things. And then not ideal for those who do not like taking risks. Yes, and I would say that's true about entrepreneurship in general. I don't see that being very specific to being a solopreneur. Oh, I didn't realize there's one more bullet that they give for why you shouldn't be a solopreneur, and it's that it can be stressful, which of course it can be stressful. They say, quote, performing a large number of tasks day after day and being responsible for success single-handedly can prove to be very stressful. From the stress of making money to the stress of acquiring resources, the list is endless. The load of the work responsibilities and the possibility of failure can make anyone crumble, while the stress may also affect the performance of the individual. Yes, I agree. And again, I would say these are reasons why being an entrepreneur in general is probably not the best fit for everybody. Though for me personally, being a solopreneur is far less stressful than if I had a whole team of people working for me, because then I would feel stressed on their behalf. I think that probably would drive me mad. I think about this not infrequently, and I genuinely wonder if I did have even just a couple of employees, if I would just not be able to be healthy. It would just become unnecessary fodder for my proneness towards anxiety, that I would just be worried that I wouldn't be a good boss, that I wouldn't, what if I couldn't come through on a paycheck someday, even if everything seems fine now. I noticed as I ran through this list that in my mind there was something that popped up several times for many of the bullet points is, just how high risk it is, how stressful it could be, and all of that. And I noticed for me, it's not stressful and it doesn't feel very high risk. And I think for me, a big reason why that's the case is I have diversified my income personally just within my business so much. And I've spoken before, it's been a little while, but I have several income streams just for private practice skills, and all of them do fluctuate quite a bit, surprisingly quite a bit actually, but overall my income has been so stable. Like when you have 15 different streams of income and one of them disappears, you're probably going to be okay. And usually when that happens, there's some other one that pops up, and generally my income just keeps going upwards. And what I'll say is I've also diversified my income because I have 2 businesses. So my therapy practice is still going. And even though I only work 1 day a week, it generates a fair amount of income. And so that provides a bit of stability as well. And then, of course, this is a privileged thing, but I live in a dual income household. So my spouse is also contributing income. And then together in our portfolio of income, we have diversified our investments and diversified our sources of income as well. Full credit goes to my spouse on that one. Thank you, Daniel, for being so financially savvy. He has figured out how to diversify our investments and our income in a way that's supportive. Even with all of that said, we weren't always in the financially cushy spot that we're in now. And even back then, when it felt like, we were really making sure we were staying in a tight budget, I never really felt like I was taking that much of a risk with some of my business ideas. It just felt like I'm going to do this on the side of some other stable support financially. And then as this side thing generates more income, I can lean on that more and more. And then I can just keep taking risks on the side. So if that risk falls through, no harm done. We're already living off of this other income anyway. And so if this other thing that I'm working on takes off, great. I'll lean on it a little bit more and keep all of the income diversified so that it doesn't feel as risky. And I've shared before on this channel, I forget in which videos, but this isn't my first business idea. I did start a bunch of businesses on the side before private practice skills that never turned into anything. I did not earn any money from those, but I also did not lose any money from those. I just invested time, and it felt worthwhile to invest that time on the side of whatever income I was generating just to see if my business idea would work. And a lot of them didn't work, but this one did. So again, that's my perspective. Well, that was probably a mouthful. I hope this was useful to you to hear. And for those of you listening to the podcast, you got to hear a little bit of my defensive side coming out, I think, and maybe a little bitterness that I forgot was even there. So I'll have to reflect on that too. Some bitterness towards like prior workplace situations, because I am prone to being the complainer. I will be honest. In workplace situations, I'm like, we're not doing this right. We can do better. Why is no one listening to my complaint? And then, Marie becomes the complainer. Does anyone else relate with that? I don't know. I feel like I'm usually just like the one that flags, red flags, toxic things, unethical things. And then people don't like talking to me because I'm going to flag those things. So if anyone from that time in my life is watching or listening, thank you for being patient with me. All right, my battery's about to die, so it's time to close this video. I hope you found this helpful. If you're thinking about being a solopreneur, explore it. Explore the pros and the cons. And yeah, it might not be the best fit for most people, but it is a good fit for some people, and it could be worth exploring whether you're one of those people. While I sure enjoyed making this video, it felt a little more chit-chatty than usual, sharing my thoughts and my feelings. I'd be curious to hear in the comments if you relate with anything that I said, or maybe you don't relate. And most importantly, I hope you find whatever path in your career is the best fit for you, which looks different for everyone, and I love that. Until next time, from one therapist to another, I wish you well.